Welcome to episode 4. Today on the Food Bank Show, we're going to be looking at farming and the state of farming, how it affects the planet, global warming. We're going to look at how it affects our health. And of course, we're really keen, aren't we, with COVID-19 out there at the moment. What can we do to protect our immune system? And does the quality of the food we're eating, does the location it comes from, does whether it's had herbicides, pesticides, does that make a difference? Should we be buying local? Should we be going organic at this time where we're trying to bolster our immune system? If you're new to us, welcome. This is the Food Bank Show. Our aim is over the coming weeks, coming months, however long we're in lockdown, we're going to be broadcasting every day. We're broadcasting from what we're calling the Health Bunker. Helped out by my children who are producing the show. They're producing and editing the show every single morning once they've done their homework. Have a look on camera 3. Jack, let's say hello to you guys if we can. I think we've got camera 3 working. There they are. There's Jack, Jess, Tom, 3 of my 7 lovely children helping produce the show. In the background, Nick and Poppy will be also helping us and putting the show together. So today we have got a great show lined up for you. Jen Mackinder, who is a nutritionist, is going to be joining us first off. And then delighted we'll be going to be welcoming, I can't get my words out this morning. Wearing these in for a horse. After Jen Mackinder, we will have CBE Patrick Holden coming on the show. Now Patrick is fascinating. First of all, he runs the longest standing organic farm in Wales himself. He was also 20 years as a director of an organisation that control what we're allowed to call organic in the UK. It's called the Soil Association and the Organic Soil Association. He's going to be talking us through about sustainability. He's going to be talking about the state of farming and what we can do as consumers to help Great Britain get our farming back on track. And also, what is the state of farming going to be like after we come out the other side of COVID-19? Let's remind ourselves the whole purpose of the show. It's really about, because the fast sort of food chains are closed now, the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, the Subways and so on, because they're closed and because the restaurants are closed, you and I, we've got to change our eating habits anyway. So because of that, what can we do in our kitchen over the coming weeks to experiment with new food, try new things and try and change our diet a little bit to become more healthy? Because after social distancing and after washing our hands, the next best thing we can do is bolster our immune system by eating real foods. The next purpose of the show is to heavily promote and get you involved with looking after and helping support the food banks of the UK. It's really, really important right now that we do everything we can, because 2 things are happening. Well, 3 things are happening at the food banks. More demand than ever, as you could understand in a hard time like this. Secondly, as again you'll understand, less people dropping food into those boxes. In fact, my daughter and I were in Sainsbury's yesterday and what would normally be a fairly full collection box was virtually empty. So less people putting their food in. And thirdly, the volunteers who have worked so hard across all of the food banks in the UK, many of them are elderly and therefore they're social distancing. So right now, the Trussell Trust, who run 1,200 food banks, need your help, my help. We need to drop off more food and we need to support them. And to do that, simply go to justgiving.com, the Food Bank Show. And if you can make a donation, my family and I
have to go without everyday things, food, hot water, heating. That's really, it's a really hard.
end of this. And trust me, we will get through this and we will come out the other end. We want to discuss with our guests. We have some great guests on already this week. Tom Watson, Seema Lotra, all with opinions of when we come out the other side. We think there will be some silver linings. We think the world will be a cleaner place. We think it's going to be, in some ways, better for communities. So that's what we're all about. Let's first of all, though, go and tell you a little bit about the Trussell Trust, and then we're going to be joined by Jen Mackinder.
When you have to go without everyday things, food, hot water, heating. That's really, it's a really hard way to have to live, really. And that's devastating for most people. Started to make a lot of mistakes at work, and they suggested that I see a doctor, who diagnosed me with, at that time, work-related stress.
I unfortunately took 2 TIA strokes. I did spend a time in hospital to come out to discover that I couldn't go back to my work.
Worked all my life, army, sales, when my health deteriorated with a heart condition. Then my married life deteriorated as well.
After a period of time, they decided it wouldn't be viable for me to return to that kind of work because I couldn't handle the pressure of it, so it led me into the benefit system.
We just started to struggle. Things started to get quite sort of dramatic, and things were just starting to get on top of me because I just wasn't doing what I should have been doing as a mother.
I do have a 10-year-old daughter as well, so I do try and provide for her as well, which makes it more difficult, but it's a case of trying to budget or having to go without. I think if the food bank had not been there to keep me going, I don't think I'd be here today.
No, I'm not needing the food bank anymore, but I'm glad it was there when I needed the help.
To find out that there is places there that can help you with food and other things, it's an amazing thing to have put in front of you.
So anything you can do to help support the Trussell Trust, that would be fantastic. We've got to get rid of hunger in the UK and anything. And I know hard times, it's always hard. You've got to put your family first, but if you can drop off a can of fish, a can of vegetables into those boxes and many other foods, that would be great. Right, now this might sound like a little bit off topic, but it actually is very on topic, as you'll see in a moment. Greenhouse gases, we know we have a problem. Remember, there's another crisis sadly happening, which is the planet has got problems. So how can we help the planet? Well, everybody knows that greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, is a big contributor. But of course, we need some carbon dioxide in the air. We need it. We wouldn't be alive today without carbon dioxide. It also has what we call a heat retaining capacity of 1. Next, you're hearing a lot in the news about cows at the moment because methane contributes to global warming. The thing is, the cows only put out about 5% of all the methane in the atmosphere. The rest, 95%, is from cars and from industry. Methane, though, does have a higher heat retaining capacity of about 25. So molecule for molecule, 25 times worse than carbon dioxide. But the bit nobody talks about, and this is because industry don't want us to talk about it, is something called nitrous oxide. If I spell anything wrong, I am dyslexic, so bear with me. Now, nitric oxide, how does that form? Well, fertilizer on the ground used for our vegetables, used for our fruits, used for our crops. The fertilizer, if it's nitrogen, as that runs off the soil at the end of the season, it turns into nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide has a massive problem because when that goes in the atmosphere, it lasts for up to 100 years before it disappears. I have no way of soaking up nitrous oxide as far as I'm aware, and it has a heat retaining capacity of around 210. So molecule for molecule, it's 200 times worse than even carbon dioxide. So why is this important? Well, if we don't let cattle roam on the ground, then we don't get natural fertilizer. If we don't get natural fertilizer, we use nitrogen. If nitrogen turns into nitrous oxide, then we have a real problem. And this is one of the reasons I keep saying the battle is not a battle between vegans and meat eaters. What we really need to be battling is real food against fake food, because the second we're using fertilizers, we have a real problem. So let's think back to the cow. Everybody's blaming the cow for global warming. And yes, it is true that the cow puts out methane, but a cow allowed to graze naturally, that is eating the grass, yeah? Eating grass, of course, but the cow then can do its thing to help with fertilizer. Grass is the second biggest way of taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, even more than forests. So we have, first of all, I don't know if you're aware, but the oceans sequester, take out, gobble up, whichever way you want to look at it, more carbon dioxide than anything, the oceans. Second is grass. But of course, if farmers aren't supported in the sense of if we're not eating their meats, then we don't have cattle roaming the fields, we're not sequestering carbon dioxide. So are cows bad for the environment? It's as simple as this. No, they're not, if they're allowed to do what cows have always done. Put that cow in a shed, hundreds of miles away from where it was supposed to roam, feed it corn, and if that corn was GMO, fertilizers, then it's part of the problem. So cows are, in my opinion, part of the solution if they're allowed to do what cows have always done. They're only part of the problem when man gets involved, puts them in a shed and feeds them foods they're not supposed to eat. Right, Jack, do we have Jen on the line yet?
Not yet.
We haven't got Jen on the line yet. So what we'll probably do is we'll probably bring Patrick Holford forward, and then we will, Patrick Holden. We've got Patrick Holford next week, Patrick Holden today. We'll bring that forward. Yesterday, we asked you to guess when you take a 150-gram serving of rice, we asked you to guess what was the effect on the bloodstream of 150 grams of rice. Let me just quickly explain what I mean by what is the effect on the bloodstream. When we take in sugar, that part that is glucose, so table sugar is half made of glucose. What is the effect of that glucose on the bloodstream? And that effect on the bloodstream means we need more insulin. More insulin, we think, may be part of the reason called the metabolic syndrome that can lead to everything from cancer to obesity to diabetes to Alzheimer's and much, much more. So we want to reduce wherever possible the effect on the bloodstream of glucose. So what is the answer to a small, I think you agree with me, that is quite a small little bowl of rice. That's 150 grams of rice. What is the effect on the bloodstream? Well, I'm just, by the way, going to have a look, see if we've got any comments coming in live this morning. Do come and join us live on the show. Do give us your comments on the show. It'd be great to hear from you. And you can guess the next one coming up later. So, what is the effect on your bloodstream level of a small bowl of rice? Well, how about if I told you that by eating a small bowl of rice, it is the same effect as eating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, oops, drop one, 10 cubes of sugar. It's the same effect on your bloodstream as 10 cubes of sugar or 10 teaspoons of sugar by eating a small bowl of rice. And yet we've always been taught, haven't we, that rice is good for us. So rice on its own, not a problem if you're not eating a lot, as long as you aren't mixing it with fat, because it's when you mix fat and carbohydrates, the body has a problem. What could you substitute the rice for? Well, you could substitute the rice for cauliflower rice. And what we're going to do later in the shows, coming weeks, we're going to take you into the kitchen and show you some ideas of how to prepare cauliflower rice. But for now, what we've done, we've taken the entire Primal Gourmet book and we've put all of the recipes, every single one of them, free of charge on the Primal Living website under the heading of blog. Every single day, we are also on the Primal Living Instagram page. We're putting up a new inspiration for food. And what we're going to start asking you is to try something different at home. Take this opportunity, seize this moment while the restaurants are shut, while the fast food shops are shut. Seize this opportunity to try something different at home. We did it last night with the kids. We got my mother-in-law Sheila on her phone into the kitchen, so she was learning and watching and being social with my children. And last night, my youngest, which is little Louie, Jessie and Lily and myself, what we did was we cooked a different, there we go, some pictures here. There's Sheila on the phone, watching in. We cooked a different type of healthy pizza that we'd never done before. We got eggs, half a cauliflower, 4 eggs, half a cauliflower, about 400 grams of ground almonds, a bit of cheese. We made the base, we baked that off. The recipe, by the way, is a similar recipe, is on our website. So we did something different yesterday. We really enjoyed it. It tasted good and we had a good outcome. We all felt brilliant afterwards because we knew we hadn't consumed any carbs. Let's have some comments coming in if we can on the show. Let's make this as interactive as possible. You can comment live on the show. You can comment after the show. Now, I'm going to announce today some competitions. This, of course, is going to go on forever, this show, as long as we're all sort of in lockdown. We can do it every day, Saturday and Sunday. My kids are all up for it. We've got some amazing guests. Tomorrow's guests are the authors of the #1 selling book on Amazon across all the hundreds of thousands of books, or it certainly was last week. This is a cookbook by Katie and Giancarlo Caldisi. They are great fun. They're coming on the show tomorrow. Their book's been serialized in the Daily Mail, and they're going to talk to us about their story, about how a Italian chef that had been awarded the biggest honor possible in Italy for his cooking schools, for his writings, for his TV programs, a TV program that was serialized on the BBC, how when he became diabetic, did an Italian chef who loves his pasta, who loves his pizza, how did he manage to turn around his diabetes? That's tomorrow's story. It's going to be great, fascinating and fun and really insightful. But here's the thing. What we want you to do, we want you to try something different at night. Try and cook something healthy. Go and get inspiration from our website, Primal Living. Go and get inspiration probably from the Instagram page at Primal Living. Try something different and then go to the Primal Living Facebook page, show us a photo, give us a brief description of what you've done, and then at the end of the lockdown, we're going to pick our favourite photograph or the favourite recipe. Maybe we'll put 3 or 4 in a hat and then pick out a winner, and we're going to offer you either £1,000 worth of free jewellery, or we're going to offer you a weekend stay at our little boutique hotel in Warwickshire, and then Poppy, Nick, myself and Jack will come and have dinner with you on the Saturday evening and make a whole weekend of it. So competition #1. I'm going to announce quite a few competitions today. The first one then, put your photo of what you've cooked at home on our Facebook page and we'll pick out a winner. Next competition is going to call our facts competition. Every day we're going to give you the facts about a certain food. Today's is going to be the egg. Now you don't have to remember all the facts that we put on the screen. You just have to remember and write down that in episode 4, and we haven't done this yet, so this is the first one, you've just got to write down that episode 4, it was eggs that they discussed and they gave us the facts for. And then you've got to write down as many as you can, and then at the end of the lockdown period, we will look at whoever's got the most of them, and if it's a tie, then we'll pick one at random. And of course, all you've got to do is flick through each of the videos as we put them up onto YouTube. Find the bit where we go, what is the food fact? Have you got today's there, Jack? It's the green one for the eggs. Jack's just looking for today's piece. We've had to move the show all around because we're having trouble linking over to Jen Mackinder, but we're still trying that technology for you. Now, we've got some questions just coming in. How important is eating organic? says Poppy. Well, we're going to go to Patrick Holden a bit. We'll put that question to Patrick Holden. Advice for people who can't eat organic all of the time, says Hannah. Well, that's a great question. I'll answer that in a second, Hannah. So here's food fact number 1. It's the egg. All you've got to remember is it's the egg. Write that down somewhere. And even if you can't join us live every morning, then the thing to do is just go onto YouTube where we recorded them and look for the big green box and write down what it was we were talking about. The reason I chose eggs to start off with, and I'm sorry to the vegans out there, but eggs, if you think about it, eggs have inside here everything you need to create life. Now, my understanding is, and lots of nutritionists have told me this, that you could survive of just eating eggs and nothing but eggs for the entirety of your life, because everything you need is in the egg. Eggs are a great way to start your day off because they haven't got all the carbohydrates that the bread and the cereals give us. So an egg is best. It's a great way. And the thing I'd say is try different ways to prepare it. Some days scramble it. And you don't have to have it every day, but boil it some days. On our website, Primal Living, we show you how to make egg muffins, which my kids absolutely adore their egg muffins. They take a little bit longer to prepare, so it's more of a weekend thing or a holiday thing. And the great thing with eggs is not only are they full of vitamins, not only are they full of protein, which we need, the building blocks of life, not only are they full of minerals, that quite often in the supermarket now, you can see eggs full of omega. And well, how does that happen? Well, what that means there is the farmer has fed those eggs flax seeds, and flax seeds are full of omega. And what we always teach through Primal and Primal Living and through my books, Fat and Furious, is that you are what you eat eats. So if you eat something that ate lots of omega-3, then you're going to get a lot of omega-3. It's the same with salmon and other fish. Fish don't have omega in them. Fish eat plankton, and plankton is a source of omega. So you are what you eat eats. That was the main thing. Jack, one more time if you can, the egg fact. So even if you missed today's show, even if you missed tomorrow's, you can go back from episode 4 onwards, just write down what the food fact was, just the type, get the whole list. We'll have a competition at the end. If lots of people get it all right, we'll pick a winner, and you're either going to get £1,000 worth of jewellery, and we'll give you a choice, or a weekend stay in a boutique hotel in Warwickshire, and Jack, myself, and the gang will, if you want us to, have dinner with you. Have we got Patrick on the phone yet? Okay, we haven't got Patrick on the phone yet. So let's go and show a clip, Jack, some more support we can give to the Trussell Trust. And it's really, really important at this time that everybody, I find it quite amazing in this hard time, right? Communities are growing strong. Even though we're social distancing physically, we're connecting much more through Zoom and through FaceTime and WhatsApp and over the garden fence. And I think communities are coming together really, really strong. But let's not only build these communities with our loved ones and our families and our friends, let's build communities with those that need our support the most. Over 2% of food banks, 2% of people in the UK, families, rely on the support of food banks. And right now, more than ever, the food banks need your and my help. Let's take a little look.
Food bank isn't only about food. Food bank is also about meeting new friends, getting to know people. I was a care support worker in the Northern Trust. I have 3 children, ages from 23, 16 and 6. Last April was around Easter time. I unfortunately took 2 TIA strokes. I did spend a time in hospital to come out to discover that I couldn't go back to my work. I also didn't get any sick pay through my work because I was a bank staff nurse or bank nurse. There was food in the cupboard. We had some food in the freezer, but I knew it was starting to get low and low and low. Things were just starting to get on top of me because I just wasn't doing what I should have been doing as a mother, and felt kind of down on it. I was getting benefits as well, but I was even struggling in those. I decided it was either go and ask somebody for a lend of money and have that debt and struggle, or go to the food bank. So I decided I would opt for the food bank. Driving in, I sat in the car park for about 5, maybe 10 minutes, getting the courage to go in, and the welcome that I got through the doors was just phenomenal. They offered me tea, coffee. They didn't go full in on me, what's wrong or what have you. It was totally so nice, so family based. The girls helped me with what food I needed for the kids, which was my importance, was the children. Coming here was just a great relief. Nobody judges anybody. I found that Jenny was fit to give me some information on any benefits that maybe I was entitled to that I wasn't getting. Just showing me the road that maybe I could go down and get more help, which was very good. Left with my bags and my food and just felt very overwhelmed. I think I just cried. Just a good feeling. Yeah, I was so glad I come here. Because of me not working anymore, I decided I'm going to join. So I now am a volunteer for the food bank. I still struggle a little, but things are definitely well balanced out now. So no, I'm not needing the food bank anymore, but I'm glad it was there when I needed the help.
Wow, we really need together, don't we, to really support our food banks. Isn't it frustrating? Isn't it upsetting? Or isn't it horrible to know that people there are families that need the basic food and they need our help to their circumstances. We've got to do what we can. Now I'm going to answer a question from Hannah there about what can we do if we can't find organic all the time or can't afford it all the time. And this might sound like a plug. It's not a plug. This show is not about promoting any products that we sell, but it's the only thing I can think of. So one of the problems is if you try and wash your fruit and your veg to get rid of the pesticides and the herbicides, of course that's not really going to get the pesticides and herbicides off, because if it was as simple as that, every single time it rains, they'd have to come back out and re-spray the crops. So water on its own doesn't work. What you can do, in fact, before we just do a little plug for a product, you can get vinegar in your bowl, and vinegar helps. So get a bowl in the kitchen, in the sink, a little bit in the sink. Vinegar helps remove some of the pesticides and herbicides. Of course, on things like mushrooms, you could go and peel the skin off if it's not organic. Or we created something called Fav Wash, which is Fruit and Veg Wash, which is a natural product. It's available on primalliving.com, and you spray that on your fruit and veg and it removes a lot of the pesticides and the herbicides. But where you can get organic, try and get organic. Let me tell you a little story about the blackberry. A blackberry that has grown natural in one hand and a blackberry in the other hand that's had the herbicides and the pesticides. The one that's had the herbicides and the pesticides, as it was growing, didn't need to build its self-defense mechanism against the outside world. It wasn't worried about the bugs and all of the other problems that could happen and the mold and the damp, because man put a coating on the outside. The little blueberry that grew on its own had to build its own defense mechanism. What does that mean when we come to eat it? Well, when we come to eat it on a blueberry, they say that the oxidative benefits, that all the things, the antioxidants, one of the reasons we eat fruit the first times, is 9 times more powerful and beneficial to us. 9 times more beneficial if it grew naturally rather than having sprayed by man. So where you can, go organic. Where you can't go organic, find a way of clearing your vegetables. Jack, what are you saying, mate?
I think I may have Patrick on the line.
We think we may have Patrick on the line. Are you there, Patrick?
Hello, good morning.
Hey, my friend, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, good. Have you been for your cold water swim this morning?
I haven't been for a cold water swim, but I have milked the cows.
Good
and
man.
Put them out in the field, and they're out in the field above me now, grazing contentedly.
That's fantastic. Patrick, first of all, thank you for coming on to the show. I hope you and your family are all keeping well. Are you on your farm in Wales at the moment?
Yes, on the farm in Wales, and we are all hunkered down. And the weird thing about farming is it just continues as normal. So, if anything could be normal in these strange times, working and living on a farm is, because the cows in nature don't recognize this coronavirus for some reason. They just get on with it.
Yeah, well, Pat, you're almost same name as yourself. Patrick Holford says to me that there are 4 species that could potentially get COVID are the same 4 species that can't produce vitamin C. And he actually said of those 4 species, one is the bat, one is the chimpanzees, one is us, and one is, I think it's guinea pigs. And he said of those 4 that could get it, the bats don't. And the only thing they can think of, and I don't want to spoil too much because he's on the show next Thursday, he said the only thing they can think of is the bat does interval training. So there's something about interval training and lots of vitamin C that may prevent people getting it. But thank goodness your cows aren't getting it. Let's start by telling everybody your amazing story, because that would be great to hear.
Well, I've been farming now for 47 years on this hill in West Wales. I was one of the back to the landers in the 70s. Grew up in London. My dad was a doctor, and I decided in my early 20s that I wanted to farm in harmony with nature and farm in a more sustainable way. A group of 6 of us moved here, and that was one of those early community farms. And the community struggled, but I stayed. And now I'm here, and we have a herd of 80 Ayrshire cows. It's now the longest established organic dairy farm in Wales. And we make cheese from our milk, a cheese called Havod. And the cheese was sold in places, in restaurants, and some of it was exported, and some of it in Neal's Yard Dairy in London. But of course, all these outlets have suffered now because of the virus. So we're struggling at the moment to find a home for our cheese. But my day job is working for the Sustainable Food Trust, which is an organization I founded about 8 years ago. And our mission is to campaign for more sustainable and resilient food systems, both locally and globally. And we're making some progress. And I think this pandemic is a shock that we all needed in a way. And I'm not saying I wish it on anyone, but we've seen how insecure our food systems are, and we need to do something about that.
Absolutely. So can we go back to basics and also quickly just tell everybody about your time at the Soil Association, if you can, because you were, I think, a director there for about 20 years, were you not?
Yes, for 15 years I was director. And during the time I was there, I wanted to build a separate market for more sustainable food, and that became the organic market. And I was involved with drafting the standards and taking the market from a very small scale to what is a reasonably good size today. But I now believe that all farmers need to adopt more sustainable methods. So even though I'm an organic farmer myself and proud to sell organic milk and cheese, I now believe that actually all farmers need to switch to farming in harmony with nature, which for no fault of the farming community hasn't been possible for most of my farming lifetime, because the right thing hasn't paid. That's the kind of thing that I'm doing, and the wrong thing has. And of course, most farmers have to follow the best business case, the most profitable option. So they've been trapped in a way on a treadmill of intensification. But now, if we, the consuming public, get behind the sustainable farmers in their hour of need, I think everything can change.
And as part of that the government have been, in my understanding, subsidising in some sense the wrong thing. They've been subsidising farming using chemicals and fertilisers and nitrogen and pesticides and herbicides. But farmers like you trying to do it the proper way that is in harmony with the survival of our planet haven't been getting as good subsidies?
That's right. It's a carrots and sticks thing. You know, the government set the overall environment for farming, and the subsidies have gone to farmers whether or not they farm intensively or sustainably. And the polluter hasn't been having to pay. So farmers who have been using practices which cause damage to the environment or human health haven't been financially accountable for those problems. So now, before all this pandemic blew up, post-Brexit, the policies are being redesigned, and hopefully that all those subsidies are going to be redirected in such a way that there's a phrase called public money for public goods. So in future, farmers will only get the money from government if they're using practices which deliver public benefits, and that means farming in a more sustainable way, not using pesticides and nitrogen fertilizer, looking after biodiversity, and above all, producing healthy, vital food, which makes us fit and able to withstand pest and disease challenges. I'm not going to say that if you eat organically, you will necessarily not get the virus, but I think there's no doubt about it that the stronger our immune system, the less likely we are to suffer if we get a disease.
One of the things, and I'm just going to quickly go and turn the camera around on my children, because you stay there a second, Patrick. So say hello to 3 of my children. They're sitting over here right now. Let me see if I can get the camera in the right place. There we go. You taught me a few months ago about a word called hydroponics, which I'd never heard of before, and you've completely changed the way that we do our grocery shopping for the benefit of my kids, because they still don't believe this could even be possible. Say hello to Patrick, children. You're not on the screen yet. Go on, get on the screen. For the sake of my children and all parents around the world watching this or the repeats of this, Patrick, explain what hydroponics is, please.
Well, there's been a lot of talk recently about growing food without soil. And there's a thing called vertical farming, which has become quite fashionable. This idea that you can grow plants just in a medium of chemical solution, fertilizer solution in water. And it turns out that a lot of the food the salads that we eat are already produced that way. In fact, if you buy salads in a supermarket, probably they've been grown without soil at all, with nutrients in solution. And when you do that, if you think about it, the soil is like the stomach of the plant. So plants spend a third of their energy exuding a sugary sap into the root zone, which nourishes a symbiotic community of bacteria and fungi, which digest all the organic matter in the soil, and then the plant can nourish itself. Now, in that nutrient solution, it's full of trace elements and all sorts of complicated phytonutrients, which of course are what the plant needs to stay healthy. And when we eat those plants, we are healthy too. Now, if you grow plants hydroponically, you bypass all that. It's rather like a stomach tube feeding a patient. So it's not as good for you nutritionally if you eat plants which have been grown hydroponically. But most people didn't realize that that's been going on. And I think that public pressure needs to change that. So we need to say to all the supermarkets, sorry, we don't want soilless salads anymore. We want the real thing, which is actually grown in soil.
And you said let me get this right. If I go down to the supermarket and I buy my salad vegetables, so my cucumbers, my lettuce, my watercress, any tomatoes, anything that I put in my salad, there's a high potential that if it doesn't say the word organic, it didn't grow in soil.
That's correct. And I don't know if you've noticed, but those kind of vegetables, which are really all you can get in supermarkets these days, they don't taste very, very, very much. And there's a good reason for that. It's because all these complex trace elements and minerals aren't in the food. And they're what give the food its flavor. And our taste buds are hardwired to recognize these flavors, which are actually the immune system of the plants. And they're what make us healthy too. So I would recommend anybody who's buying salads, especially in this difficult time, to seek out organic products. And I'm not anti-supermarket at all, but if you can, why not buy direct from a local producer? Because they need our help at the moment. As I said at the beginning in relation to our cheese sales, the small and the artisan and the sustainable producers are suffering more from the big, large-scale farmers who are supplying the supermarkets. So it's a bit of Dunkirk spirit needed, really. We need to think about the small boats, and the metaphor applies to small farmers and growers as well. Seek them out, go online, find them where they live near you, and then support them by buying their foods.
That's really good advice. Just had a question from Nick on YouTube, a live question just come in. What does sustainable agriculture really mean?
Well, it means, as I said at the beginning, farming in harmony with nature, avoiding the use of chemicals and pesticides and non-renewable inputs, making sure that we minimize emissions which cause climate change, and making sure that our crops can grow in such a way that the biodiversity, the birds, the bees, the soil organisms and the insects and the butterflies can coexist with our food production. It's what all farming used to be like until the Second World War. And then after the Second World War, we had a food security emergency. That was the last one, arguably. And after that, we had nitrogen fertilizer and chemicals. And we really shifted our farming systems all over the world in a way which is not good for the environment or our health in the long run. And now we need to get back to the old sustainable systems which used to predominate, and in fact still did when I was young. When I grew up in the 50s, farming was still pretty sustainable, but gradually it's changed. And now I'm afraid to say, no fault of the farmers, I want to say that again, a lot of the farming systems today are very intensive.
So one of the things that I suppose can drive change, and I keep saying to everybody, we had Tom Watson on the other day, there has to
He's
be
a good man.
He's lovely, isn't he?
Yeah, very good man. He gets it.
He gets it completely. I said, there's got to be some good that comes out the back of this, because that's what tends to happen. Every tragedy, you come out the other side, there's normally a silver lining. Maybe the silver lining is we will change the way we cook, we will change the way we eat, the way we buy. And I guess to a certain extent, the consumer's got to do that, hasn't it? If we all go in and start saying to the supermarkets, it's got to be organic or we're not buying it, and all this, so in other words, we have to drive the change, I think, because farmers will have to, I guess, follow the money to stay in business, whereas probably us consumers probably need to drive the change, would you say?
Yeah, exactly that. If the food system is a giant organism, we're the cells, we're the powerful ones, and if we collectively take action, we can rebuild a food system that we need for the future. Because if you think about it, a healthy civilization depends to a very major degree on the security of its food supplies. And that's why we've all been hoarding over recent weeks. It's a natural human instinct. If we think that our food supplies might be insecure, we stock up. But the antidote to that, the long-term solution, is to redesign the food system so that we know the farmers who produce our food, preferably quite local to us. I realize that's difficult if we live in a city, but nevertheless, you can form relationships with farms around the edge of cities, including London. And then you know that the farmers are there or the growers are there for you and you're there for them. That is a secure and sustainable food supply. We've lost all that since the Second World War. Now we need to rebuild it. And it will start with citizen action. It won't start with the government. The government can help. They can do the big stuff. But actually, in the end, it's us that design our food system working together. And if we don't like the ones we've got at the moment, we should either shop elsewhere or tell our supermarkets we want more local food. I've been talking to Morrison's and to Sainsbury's just in the last few days saying, look, there's lots of people who are your customers at the moment that want local food. Will you stock it?
Well, they should stock your cheese for sure, because it's the best cheese I've ever tasted. I remember when you came up to our TV studios, we all had it and we were just blown away by your cheese. So get them stocking your cheese.
Well, we've just launched a mail order supply service, and actually we really need it because our sales have halved since the pandemic took hold, because of course much of the cheese we were supplying was going to places which can't take it anymore. So also do follow my farm on Instagram, Havod Cheese. That's HAFOD cheese. We've got some wonderful films of our cows going out to grass just in the last few days, kicking their heels and dancing. It's worth going on the Instagram just to see that.
We'll try and get a graphic up for that in a second, Jack.
You'll love that,
if we can.
There's also a lovely picture of them drinking the whey from the cheese, which is rather compelling.
We'll try and get that online tomorrow, actually. That'd be great. Samuel has just asked on YouTube, why does there seem to be quite a lack of organic vegetable choice in most supermarkets? Lack of choice.
That's a very good point. And it's interesting that although you can still buy food in supermarkets, there are relatively few lines available at the moment because there's been such a surge of demand. And I think that the truth is that most supermarkets, and again, I'm not criticizing the buyers or the individual retailers, but they just concentrate on just a few lines and a few varieties. And they haven't really thought about flavor and the Victorian vegetables and varieties they used to grow. Whereas if you buy from a local grower, you will very often find that they make a big effort to either grow locally adapted varieties or unusual heritage varieties, which are actually far probably better for you than these rather bland and tasteless varieties that predominate today. So I'd say that the supermarkets can be part of the solution, but right now, I'm afraid to say, nearly all the vegetables they source come from just a few very large-scale vegetable producers in the eastern counties, and those farms are not farmed in a mixed and sustainable way. They're just vegetable monocultures, and that really isn't, I don't think, a food system we want to see for the future. It's, in saying all this stuff, it's important not to be critical, because, we're in an emergency situation and we need to respond appropriately. But if we have good information at our fingertips, then we can act as citizens and consumers to build a better future. And that better future ought to have more varieties of fruit and vegetables, and they ought to be grown near where we live.
Go back, and it's a great point, Patrick. But go back one step. You just talked about monoculture. Talk to us a little bit and re-educate, because I think we've forgotten this as consumers about cycling the land and why that's important and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The very first carrots, organic carrots that Sainsbury's ever sold were grown on my farm and packed in my cowshed. But those carrots could only be grown once in a 7-year rotation. And the other years of the rotation, they were either growing maybe oats for the cows or grass for hay and grazing for the cows. And the reason why you can only grow carrots once in a sustainable rotation is because you need to mimic nature. You need to move the crops around, and you need to build fertility through clover and grass. Whereas since nitrogen fertilizer and pesticides came along, the arable growers, that's the growers who grow all the crops that we eat in the eastern counties, have found that they can abandon the old crop rotation, which is the way to keep the soil healthy and build all the carbon and all that sort of thing, and just grow crops year after year after year. And they've also moved away from livestock farming. And of course, some intensive livestock farming is part of the problem, the pigs and the chickens that are permanently housed in these big mega dairy herds. But the animals that are part of the crop rotation I've just described actually give the flavor to the vegetables when we grow them. So dare I say this, I'm not growing carrots anymore. I think my carrots, when I was growing them and supplying Sainsbury's, were probably the best carrots you've ever tasted. Not because they were mine, but because they were grown as part of a sustainable crop rotation. And that's what we need to move forward to after the pandemic recedes.
And it's a great advice. And I guess your carrots weren't those perfectly straight ones. Isn't that part of the problem? Us consumers now want our apples to be perfectly round. We want our bananas to be straight. We want our carrots to be a perfect orange colour like we expect them to be. Because I know when I grow my carrots, they're not straight. They're very rarely orange.
That's right. The reason why all the carrots we eat today are so uniform is they're all grown in these sort of bomb-proof soils, which are silts and sandy soils in those eastern counties, which means they get very few bent ones and slightly wrinkly ones and ones with a little bit of green top and all those sorts of things. Nothing wrong with the carrots. Probably, actually, they'd be better for you, as I said. But because of this obsession with cosmetic appearance rather than internal quality, which is partly our fault because we do tend to buy with our eye, they've gone in the direction of monoculture and growing vegetables on soils where they can get this very high degree of conformity and low grade outs. So we need to understand that something which isn't cosmetically actually absolutely 100% may actually be better for us. And if we know the grower who's growing the vegetables, we can probably go with them. They can tell us when they've had a bit of a problem or the potatoes have got a bit of scab or something like that, and we should buy them anyway.
That's brilliant advice. Thank you for that. Patrick, I'm asking as a sign off to most of my guests, what would you hope, if any, let's hope some positive comes out of this horrendous time we're living in at the moment, which we're all struggling to deal with in our own ways. Let's look for, give me one positive that might come out of the end of COVID.
Well, I'm bound to talk about food. As I mentioned, the last food security emergency was 70 years ago during the Second World War. Now we've got another one. It's been a huge shock. It's brought into question the security and the quality of the food we eat. Let's hope that out of this, we can rebuild the secure and sustainable food economy that we used to have and all be healthier as a result. And also, let's hope that we can have a better quality of life, because when we reconnect with nature, nature can feed us. And I believe that one of the consequences of this globalized age, where everything in our lives is so far distant sourced, and where we travel so much, we've lost contact with our own relationship with nature and place. So perhaps this forced incarceration can remind us of the quality of being that we need to have, and the quality of relationship with nature that we need to re-establish. I believe it's going to happen, because I think there's a mood of change about, especially amongst young people, which is a great source of optimism.
Absolutely. Patrick, thank you very, very, very much for giving up your valuable time. I know you're extremely busy. We think this is going to be on for a while. Maybe you'll come back in a couple of weeks and have another chat with us.
Love to. I'd absolutely love to, because I'm meeting with the Farmers Leaders Group on a telephone conference call, of course, once a week now, talking to the Secretary of State, George Eustice. So I've got my ear to the ground on this, and I can report back on what's happening.
Brilliant. Well, maybe we can get you back on. That will be fantastic. Patrick, God bless you, man. See you very, very soon.
All the best to you and your viewers.
Thank you. Cheers, Patrick. That was the brilliant Patrick Holden. What a great, great chap. Now let's answer some questions that you've been posting on YouTube. I want to support local farmers, but don't know where to look. Are there any local farmers in the Midlands I should be looking at? I guess just going to have a look on the internet there, Elliot, and see what you could find. Haley has said, in the food bunker, I've got an ant running over my screen. Hello, ant. Anyway, that's not what Haley said. Could I have advice for my children's lunch, please? Their go-to is a sandwich wrap crackers. Good question. What we tend to find with our children for their snacks is preparation is the key, because you never know exactly when they're going to want that snack. So try and prepare in bulk the night before, or even a few days before. Throw things into the fridge or the freezer, depending what it is. If your children are of an age that they can have nuts are great, seeds are great. Dark chocolate, it takes a while to get children to like dark chocolate. You have to probably start at 50% and slowly get them up to 60%. But once you're about 70%, the benefit of dark chocolate, I'm not talking about creamy, milky chocolate, I'm talking about real chocolate. You can get children eventually to like that. Yogurts, as long as they're whole yogurts, you can add tons and tons of flavour. With berries, you can put a bit of stevia in there to make it a bit sweeter, so natural yogurts. If they're at home right now, one of the recipes in Primal Gourmet that's also on our website, you can make your own ice cream, believe it or not, out of coconut, or as I did with my children last night, make a pizza, keep it in the fridge and reheat it, but make sure that pizza is with a base that's not full of carbohydrates. Well, lots of questions in today, so thank you very, very, very much for those. We revealed earlier how much sugar a bowl of rice turns into once digested. The effect on the glucose system was around 15 teaspoons of sugar. For tomorrow, we're going to ask you to put your answers on the repeat of this show on YouTube. We want you to think about how many cubes of sugar equivalent is in a large jacket potato. And the reason we want to get this one across, and I think in a way this maybe answers the question from Haley a second ago, because we used to think, or I used to think, and I used to make all my children have baked potatoes regularly because I thought they were really healthy. But if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, or you're overweight, or you're worried about damaging your metabolism, or you're trying to build up your defense mechanism, your immune system during this difficult time, we need to do everything we can to avoid things that turn into sugar in the body. And one of the go-to meals might have been a big baked potato. So the question, Jack, have we got any images for the old baked potato? We don't. Was it not on the ones I sent you this morning? Dad didn't do that. Okay. So if you can, on YouTube, after the show finishes, go and put a comment. How many grams of sugar do you think, or let's not say grams, let's say teaspoons of sugar or cubes of sugar, do you think a big baked potato turns into once digested? Right, we come to the end of the show. Let's recap. We have got quite a lot of competitions that we've now announced today. Every day from episode 4 onwards, we're going to show you a food fact. And we'll just show you today's food fact, which is egg. All you've got to do is write down what the topic was. Try and if you want to write down some of the benefits of the foods that we're discussing, but write down the topic. When we finish these programs, when, if you like, the curfew, when this thing is over, maybe 30 days, maybe 3 months, who knows, we'll be here every day for you at 10 o'clock till then. But if you write down what was the food fact, today's was egg, I think we have a graphic we can show you, then that's the first one. If you keep writing down as many as you can, whoever can remember the most at the end, or if it's a draw, we'll pull it out of a hat, and you can win either £1,000 worth of jewellery or a weekend stay at a boutique hotel in Warwickshire near Stratford-on-Avon. And Nick, Poppy, the show producers, Jack, the show's producer, live in the studio, and I will take you out for a big meal and to say thank you for watching. The other competition, also with prizes, also with £1,000 worth of jewellery or an evening out with us guys in a restaurant and a hotel, is to go to Primal Living's go to Primal Living's Facebook page and show us photographs of new foods. And all we're asking for is just take it can be on your phone, take a photograph of something you've cooked different in the lockdown period for yourself and your family. Describe it, tell us what ingredients you had, put a nice photograph, and again, at the end of this series, we're going to pick a winner. A couple more questions coming in. Can you explain why we are encouraged to leave pasta in food banks when you are championing a low-carb diet? Okay, so we'll just bring up the sort of list of things that the food banks are asking for. I think first thing we have to say is that while I personally would not recommend some of these, we have to remember there is a huge difference between feeling hungry and being malnourished. Yeah. So feeling hungry, if you're eating a good diet, actually is fine. You know, part of fasting, which my family and I do regularly, occasionally you feel hungry, but you know, because you're eating good nutrition in between, and because we fast so often, we're into ketosis, which means we can use our own body fat as energy. Hungry is not the problem. And if you want to eat ultimately healthy, then there are some things on here we would avoid. But the food banks are in a different position right now because they're helping people that are malnourished. That means they need food. And plus people that are malnourished probably haven't got access maybe to programs like this, and therefore we're giving the type of foods that are very easy to prepare. You know, most people, for example, rice is on the list that you can leave, and yet we've just been having a little go at rice, or at least not having a go, but explaining the amount of sugar that converts to in the body. So while some of the things that the food banks are asking for aren't what we call primal, they are very, very necessary to help people that are in need of food at the moment. Right, I think that draws a conclusion to today. Sadly, we couldn't get Jen Mackinder on, who was today's nutritionist. We will get her back for another show later in the series. Patrick Holden's just agreed to come back. You heard he's speaking with the Farmers Union every single day and reporting into government, once a week with the Farmers Union, reporting back to government once every week. And hopefully you've learned a little bit about sustainable farming today, difference between organic and not organic. Thank you very, very much for dialing in. Do please tell everybody about these shows. We're trying to raise money for the Trussell Trust, for the food banks. We're trying to raise awareness for what good food looks like. We're trying to help people get through this difficult time, and at the same time try and look for the positives, and maybe that positive is changing the way you cook at home, changing the food you eat. And a lovely comment just came in actually just as on the corner of my eye, and that was from, where are we? Carol says, good morning Bennett family. I found these broadcasts so interesting, purchased 2 of your books yesterday, cannot put Fat and Furious down, keep it up. And that is Kaz in France. So we're reaching a wide audience, which is absolutely fantastic. Children are waving goodbye to everybody. God bless. We will see you for tomorrow's episode, same time, 10 o'clock on YouTube. Please tell everybody to be here.